Welcome to the Animus podcast, a weekly podcast focusing on everything Assassin's Creed community, news, and discussion. I am one of your hosts, Aftermath1231, and with me today, as usual, is Aries.
Hello, friends.
And McCrackenway.
Hey, guys.
Today, we will be discussing the general format of the podcast, how you can submit questions, and how you can be on the podcast too. And then we will be briefly discussing Lucy Stillman. So let's get started.
Animus Island will be a weekly podcast lasting somewhere between roughly 30 and 60 minutes each week. Most of the time we'll try to have guests on, people from Reddit or the Ubisoft forums. We like to interact with the community. So if you would like to be on the podcast, you can either leave a comment on the previous thread of the podcast, PM either McCrackenway, myself, or Aftermath, or send an email to animusilandpodcast@gmail.com with guest in the subject line. If you'd like to ask us a question, yes, our official email. If you'd like to ask us a question, you can either, again, comment in the previous thread's comment section, PM one of the three of us, or send an email to animusilandpodcast@gmail.com with question in the subject line. Usually for these episodes, we'll introduce ourselves as usual and then cover any relevant news stories of the day or the week that we'd like to discuss. And then we'll go to the community and go to Aftermath's weekly discussion posts on the AC subreddit and highlight any questions that we think are especially interesting or insightful there.
This week's weekly discussion post, posted by me on the Assassin's Creed subreddit every Monday, is on Lucy Stillman. Aries, I believe you have a few things to say.
Yeah, I'd like to highlight a couple of comments that I thought were really interesting. First was the top comment, Jor Adams' comment, is saying, I thought Lucy was an interesting character, one who you felt immediately drawn to. I feel like her arc was rather truncated, though not to mention a little convoluted, which isn't saying much in this series, I know. There was the potential to do a lot more with her and further explore the relationship between her and Desmond, but it felt like it had the brakes just thrown on. I like to address that because one of the serious problems with Lucy's character arc was that it was unceremoniously cut short when Kristen Bell left the project. So one of the things I was curious about is, what do you guys think would have happened if Lucy was still in the future games and Kristen Bell stayed on and she didn't get killed in Brotherhood? What do you think would have happened?
We should mention real quick, this is going to have full spoilers for the entire series.
Which for Lucy is 4 games, I guess.
Yeah,
You've probably played it by now.
2.75. If you haven't played up to Revelations, then you're gonna get
Revelations DLC.
Yes.
Yeah. The thing that was almost our name.
A little bit in a minute here.
Alrighty.
I think that we probably would have had more backstory for her if she had kept going. And
Yeah.
so, instead of just being mentioned by William that her and Desmond grew up together, maybe they could have discussed that, how they grew up on the codename The Farm. And
Codename Farm.
What is it actually? It's an assassin camp.
It's
right?
a farm.
No, it's not a
assassins
farm.
on
It was an assassin camp.
It's literally like, I mean, the complex is a farm, but
Are you
I don't
sure?
think it's
I didn't
used for
think it
farm
was,
things.
We can just agree that they
It's
at least
in
called it the
Colorado.
farm.
No,
Okay.
wait, it's in South Dakota. Yeah, because I had a girlfriend in South Dakota once, and I asked her, I think the last time I played Revelations, I was like, do you know of any, like, abandoned farm buildings around there?
And I feel that she probably would have continued to be the team lead, possibly instead of William Miles, through till AC3. And she would have had an interesting dynamic if they had continued on with this story.
Yeah, I really liked her as an authority figure on the team who kind of kept everything together and going in one direction.
That's racist.
What?
Is it?
No, I was meaning how she kept everyone to calm down after they started accusing each other of being racist.
Oh, yeah, you're racist. What's the matter you? I'll tell you.
She was pretty much, the glue that kept everyone together. William kind of had to take on that role Although he didn't do it quite as well because there was some conflict between
Yeah.
him and Desmond anyway.
Which
Lucy
also
was a really
probably
nice
wasn't
character.
fleshed out as much as it could have been, but yeah.
No. But that's another
I
discussion.
mean, obviously, I think the thing that probably would have happened with Lucy is she and Desmond probably would have had more of a thing. Like,
Yeah.
it was definitely setting up for that, but then because she dies in Brotherhood, you got there's some voices. You hear Sean and Rebecca and William when you're sitting on the Animus Island.
Yes.
Yeah. And William is like, were they close, Desmond and Lucy? And Sean is like,
Gee,
yeah,
I don't know.
I think there's like something probably. So like, it was weird because it was setting up to that, but it was in very early stages. So in kind of real world terms, it's like a relationship that never really got off the ground. It's like,
yeah,
like you probably wouldn't talk about it because it really didn't do anything.
I think, though, one of the things I really think about when I think of Lucy's character is surprise, because she did two things that really surprised me. One was she died very unexpectedly at the end of Brotherhood.
Whoa.
And then two was the Templar reveal. So,
Yeah.
did either of you see
she
the
technically
death
did the
coming?
no,
I did not see it
I
coming
didn't
at
see
all.
that coming.
I was so shocked.
That was back when we were having the end of every game being like, what?
Yeah.
Oh my god. I miss that.
Yeah, I missed that too.
Yeah.
Wistful nostalgia.
But then the reveal of her being a Templar, I didn't expect that either. And one of the things that bugged me is that it was relegated to the DLC that so few people played, because it came out almost like the same month or the same week that AC3 was announced. So there's this whole thing, and Lucy's a Templar, spoiler alert, plot twist, and then it's referenced in AC3 as if it was no big deal. And everyone's like, wait, what, Lucy was a Templar? When did that happen?
People were saying, like, some people were saying, I guess they probably didn't know about the Lost Archive, but they were saying, like, it was revealed in AC3, and I was like, I didn't even realize that they mentioned it in AC3.
Yeah.
Like, it just did not factor to any measurable degree.
I actually read about it for the first time on the AC Wiki at some point, and I thought I must have just missed it in Revelations. And so just like that, I felt it was very, very strange that they mentioned it so flippantly in AC3. Like, it was something that everybody knew and everyone's gotten used to.
Like, oh, Lucy's a Templar, old hat, yeah, nothing special there.
Yeah, well...
By that point, I guess the other thing is, like, so at the end of Revelations, Desmond wakes up in the back of the van, and they're already at, like, the Grand Temple.
Yeah.
And then AC3 picks up, they get out of the van, they take all this stuff into the Grand Temple. How long has Desmond been awake at this point? Like...
after being in a coma, I don't think he'd just be like, yeah, let's go do some stuff.
How long has this whole thing been established?
It would have been less than a day, I feel. Like, he'd have to wake up, probably run around a bit, because he's been lying in a chair for several days to weeks. And then they would have came down in the van, and then moved out, and gone down to the Grand Temple.
So I guess they probably... I don't know. Did... Because during Revelations, it didn't sound to me like they knew... that Lucy had been a Templar.
Yeah, no, because only Desmond would have seen that since he was the only person who saw the archive.
Yeah. Was it even Desmond that saw the archive? Because you started out of the menu and it never references you as like...
No, it's the archive is the last three pillars sections that were broken off. And it's part of Desmond's journey, that's canonically what they are. The last three parts of Desmond's journey.
Although I still don't feel like you get... Because you open it from the main menu, you don't...
Yeah.
So
semantics. About Lucy
Desmond
actually being a Templar, I don't know whether to think it was a betrayal of her character and a cheap cop-out, or if they meant to do that from the beginning. Because Kristen Bell was signed on for 3 games. And it was going to be AC 1, 2, and 3, but then Brotherhood and Revelations happened, and she was like, all right, I did my 3 games, see y'all later. And I think that's the same reason that Patrice Désilets left, because he thought it was going to be 3 games, and then they spread open Ezio's story, and he's like, no way, man, I'm out of here.
Yeah,
so I wonder if even the writers saw the plot twist coming, because they're like, oh, no, we have to figure out a way to make this work. And I don't know whether to think it would be actually in Lucy's character to have been a Templar all along, and
it doesn't
I don't know.
make much
I just don't
sense.
know.
And she's like a triple agent as well, which is really weird.
I mean, bravo for coming up with a plot twist like that, because it definitely surprised me.
And I was shocked.
It was surprising. I'm still not sure it quite made sense. Like, I don't know, I guess she briefly mentions her motivations, like in the Lost Archive, and to me it was like that, like, okay, that doesn't seem like a big deal, but okay, or like,
but
whatever you're saying does not actually seem valid. But
her being embedded, all this mumble jumble, she's a Templar, she's an assassin, she's a Templar, actually has a name, and it was orchestrated by Abstergo, being called Project Siren. Which is mentioned on the AC Wiki.
So
and
does that imply that she was
she
calling him and leading him?
Romance Desmond?
I wouldn't say romance, but it makes sense if you think about it, because the Sirens were, for those of you who aren't up on your mythology, I just read the Odyssey, so I got a briefing of this last semester. But the Sirens were beautiful women who would sing, and they draw you to sail to their islands, and when you got there, you'd get killed because you'd crash into the rocks. So that actually does make very good sense for a name for Lucy, because she was established, right immediately in AC1 as a very, very connectable character, and that's not the right word, but someone who you felt drawn to and felt safe with. And that's a testament to the writers for AC1 for making Lucy's character that way. But then the reason that the Siren metaphor makes sense is because she did, not quite sing, but talked Desmond into coming to the hideout and going through the Ezio memories really for Abstergo to end up getting them. So bravo with the naming convention there.
Like right here on the AC Wiki, it says, as Desmond's condition began to worsen, however, Warren and Lucy turned to more drastic measures and formulated Project Siren. Lucy was ordered to take Desmond somewhere he would feel safe, and the two Templars orchestrated Desmond's and her escape from Abstergo. Lucy carried out her orders and relocated Desmond to a hideout to join his fellow assassins Sean Hastings and Rebecca Crane. So that goes perfectly along with what you're saying about to make him feel safe, to make him feel comfortable with her. That maybe eventually she could extract the rest of his memories necessary.
Yeah, and even beyond Desmond, like, I don't know about you guys, but I felt safe with Lucy. I felt like here's this character that's taking care of me and wants me to, be an assassin, but also, wants me to, do well and not be subjected to Abstergo's, stuff all day long.
I mean, I started the series with AZ2 way back when. So my first interaction with any character in the series was
Desmond, we have to leave.
Yeah.
What? Now?
Exactly.
Covered in blood.
Yeah, and I saw her being really badass and, escaping, and then at the same time, a couple minutes later, she was being... I guess there was a softer side of her personality at the same time, and...
When she threw you in a trunk. That was funny.
After the trunk.
Yeah, I got
Desmond, get in the trunk. Now. But yeah. So, I don't know, that for me really established her as
no nonsense.
And a really good supporting character that it's weird now because actually when we put down what we'd be talking about for this podcast, we'd be talking about Lucy. I was kind of Lucy, I don't, but mostly because by now that seems so far away and so
she's so gone. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
she was so important to the story. She and now it's made AC2 and onwards happen.
Yeah,
which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
Aftermath. Anything else you'd like to add?
I'm just reading here that I was just wondering while we were discussing that when she became a Templar, if she was a Templar implant from being an assassin originally, growing
That's
up
a good
on the
question.
farm with Desmond. But it says here that during her infiltration of Abstergo, she reported information on the company's recent activity to the assassins. However, Lucy's lengthy separation from the assassin order and her distrust for William Miles led to her secret defection to the Templar cause prior to 2011. So she'd been a Templar, secretly a Templar, for about 2 years.
Yeah, by the time
Wow.
AC even starts.
Yeah.
Yikes.
That's
Because
very
AC starts in
interesting.
2012.
Talk about double agency and backstabbing.
And then
Yeah.
she goes like a triple agent because she's pretending that she's a Templar assassin and a Templar assassin, a Templar assassin.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very, very strange.
So I think at the end of the day, although she's a very confusing character, we can agree she is very dynamic, and I think she was played fairly well. I liked her arc, and I liked what she did. She did a good thing for moving the series forward, but also she was really one of the reasons that the modern-day overarching context made a lot of sense, was because it's Lucy helping Desmond through all of this stuff and helping him be an assassin.
Yeah.
So I like Lucy as a character, end of the day.
I guess you could argue to some extent, like people have been saying the modern day has been dead since Desmond was killed off. You could kind of argue and go back and say that the modern
It was
day
dead
has
when
kind
Lucy
of been
died.
dead when Lucy died,
Yeah, absolutely.
because you kind of, I mean, you have Revelations where, I mean, I love Revelations, and I really like the idea because the bleeding effect was building up to something, but you're in this coma, so it, like from a gameplay standpoint and like from a production of the game standpoint, it almost feels like, wow, now I have to come up with something to do for the next game while we decide what to do. And then I guess a lot of people didn't like AC3's modern day, and I think part of that might be because at that point, a lot of the meaningful character interaction that had been built up over the past,
It's gone.
4 games was, it was gone.
Well,
And
there was
I mean,
also
they
Game
kind of
Across.
tried to build up, they tried to build up like a meaningful character interaction with William Miles, but they only had like, I mean, honestly, less than 1 game because most of the game is obviously Connor and in New York and Boston, but they tried to build up this relationship with Desmond's father in like a handful of conversations.
Yeah, they're very different leaders, and I think there was a nice contrast between the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
Where Miles rules with an iron fist and doesn't try to be loved, almost sort of prototypical Machiavellian. Whereas Lucy was aggressive and forthright, but she cared, even if she did want to be a traitor.
Yeah, you can tell because they were sort of, even after she had been revealed to be a Templar, they were kind of debating whether she was interested in Desmond.
Yeah, that's a good question. Was that real?
Romantically? Was that a part of Project Siren? Or
well, it would fit with the
a
metaphor.
side effect of it? Well, yeah, it would.
It would work with the naming convention, like we were discussing earlier.
Yeah.
That's a good question to which I don't know if I know the answer, because there's a lot of evidence on either side for or against it. Against Lucy actually liking Desmond in that way is that it's a ploy and she wants him to play along, so this is the best way to get him to play along. But on the Force side, I think it's not entirely out of the question that this person whom you're running away with to a far-off land, you start developing some sort of feelings for because you're at least pretending to be on the run from some huge organization.
Mm-hmm.
Terror fosters intimacy.
Yeah, when they can find you with cell phone towers.
Yeah.
That's probably a discussion for another time, but that was interesting to me, like what they were talking about Abstergo could do, and the way they were talking about the kind of, I mean, I don't know if AC is probably more historical fiction than straight up alternate history, but I mean, Assassin's Creed 1 kind of established an alternate version of 2012 that is different from what actually happened in 2012. Like, there's a couple emails that talk about specific things that are divergent from our present day. I don't know how I got onto that, but...
Anyway, I'll leave you, the audience, with a question. Do you think that Lucy was playing along, or was she actually in love with Desmond? That's for you to discuss, so have fun since we couldn't answer it ourselves. Thank you all very much for listening to the 0th episode of the Animus Island podcast. We enjoyed having you here. We hope to see you all next week. Thank you. Good night.